You ready for this lunar eclipse on Saturday the 28th? This is a massive closing out, a chapter ending. It is the phoenix rising from the ashes. This is the last eclipse on the Scorpio-Taurus axis over the past 2 years. We have been going through eclipses in the signs of Scorpio and Taurus since November of 2021, and this is really the final closing chapter of everything the fixed signs have been going through. Even if you don't have fixed sign placements, you still have these signs in your chart somewhere. So you've been experiencing these eclipses in those houses in your natal chart. These eclipses have been catastrophic in a lot of ways for everybody in the collective. When the nodes were in Taurus Scorpio, we saw massive changes on global and collective levels and in our personal lives. And the eclipses seem to hit somewhat harder when they're in fixed signs being Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. But like I said, this is the final eclipse on the Taurus-Scorpio axis, and we just had a solar eclipse in Libra, and after that we will be going into the following eclipse season, will be in the spring, and that will be our first eclipse in the sign of Aries. That being said, this is a closing out, and with full moons in general, full moons are usually a closing out. You're at the height of the lunation cycle, but it is a north node eclipse, which gives it a little more benefic energy. It's also conjunct Jupiter, which gives it a lot of benefic energy, and it is exalted because this the moon is exalted in the sign of Taurus already. So there is a lot of good benefic energy to this eclipse. I actually don't mind it. I'm not saying that there's no negative aspects or no challenges, because any full moon and any eclipse is going to heighten your emotions, and it is going to affect you in unexpected ways. But for the most part, if you can utilize the energy correctly and work with the energy correctly, then it will most likely benefit you in the long run. I'm not going to lie, there is a little bit of bitchy energy to this eclipse because we do have Mercury and Mars, which are conjunct in Scorpio. Keep in mind, we have the Sun, Mercury, and Mars all in Scorpio. Mercury and Mars are conjunct, and that being said, Mercury and Mars are opposing this full moon lunar eclipse in Taurus. And there's also a square to Pluto from the eclipse, and there is a supportive sextile to Saturn, which is at 0 degrees of Pisces, getting ready to station. Keep in mind, the 0 degree point and the 29th degree are both, those are stronger points in the sign. So when you have Saturn, the planet of Saturn, at 0 degrees of Pisces, getting ready to station, which means he's getting ready to come out of his retrograde. He's barely moving, if any, and the energy is at 0 degrees. So it's like extreme in the 0 degrees Pisces area of your chart. So definitely check out and see where that is. But with that supportive sextile, there is an element of having to put in some sort of work in regards to the Pisces area of your chart to utilize the energies of the eclipse in the Taurus area of your chart. Back to the bitchy energy with Mercury and Mars opposing this full moon lunar eclipse. This does spell out kind of aggressive communication or anger or outbursts of anger from yourself to other people, or from other people to yourself, in regards to your success, your advancement, you're utilizing things and moving forward in the Taurus area of your chart, whichever house is ruled by Taurus, as well as the degree point where this eclipse is at 5 degrees. But there's some sort of oppositional energy, and this could just be aspects of yourself, but I really see this as oppositions and aggression coming from other people in forms of communication. There is also a wide orb square over to Pluto at the end of Capricorn. Keep in mind, Pluto just stationed direct at 27 degrees of Capricorn, and Pluto will be getting ready to go back into Aquarius again at the end of the year. And with this squaring this eclipse, I feel like this is like a forced metamorphosis, and we are being forced to utilize these changes and being forced to integrate these lessons that we've been learning over the past 1.5 to 2 years since the eclipses have been in Taurus and Scorpio. Pluto is a planet that brings massive transformations. Again, also we are in Scorpio season. This is the phoenix rising. In order to rise, we have to let a part of ourselves die. So what aspect of yourself do you need to let go of in order to start anew? It is Phoenix energy, it's Scorpio energy, it's death and rebirth, the tower moment. You have to let a structure crumble for it to be rebuilt again. The dispositor of this eclipse is Venus, and Venus is in the sign of Virgo, which is technically her fall position. Although she's not making any terrible aspects, there is a lot of social energy as well. So I'm not saying be wary of that. It's actually a really good energy. Get out there and utilize your friendships and your connections, your romantic partnerships, especially because we do have Venus, the ruler of this eclipse, which is trine to Uranus. And Uranus and Venus are both the relationship planets. One of them deals with more of our social connections, and one of them deals with more of our like romantic connections. So there's an element here of utilizing those connections, especially with a trine. A trine comes a little bit more naturally than a sextile does. And if we can kind of recognize where we have support from other people instead of looking over that support, because with the trine, it can oftentimes go unnoticed. So if we can utilize our connections with other people as opposed to sweeping them under the rug and not looking at them for what they are, then we can harness this energy. And that being said, with Venus in the practical earth sign of Virgo, we can utilize the help from other people to get practical things done or get practical advice. Venus in the sign of Virgo is very analytical, and Virgo is also ruled by the planet Mercury. So there's an element of mercurial energy there that we can utilize from our relationships with other people. Venus is also making almost an exact in conjunction over to Chiron, which is in Aries, and Chiron in Aries is like our wounded ego. So when we have an in conjunction or a quincunx, that means there is absolutely nothing in common between the two planets or the two signs. And this is really about not letting our values be obstructed by wounds of our ego. This is not a time to be playing victim mentality. This is not a time for asking for things that are not in alignment. I just realized that my microphone wasn't plugged in this whole time, so I might as well just not use it. But with that in conjunction or quincunx, this is really about not letting wounds of the ego get in the way of where our true value is. And that value may be very well in other people, or it could be in the practical, logical side of things with the dispositor of this eclipse in Virgo. That being said, there's also an opposition from Venus to Neptune. And when we have a opposition, Venus being in the sign of Virgo and Neptune being at the end of Pisces, Neptune has been in Pisces since 2011. There's an element here of not seeing things clearly, wearing rose-colored glasses. So be sure that you're utilizing that opposition. With oppositions, we have to find a middle ground. So it's not looking like overly optimistic at something with Neptune and Pisces. Neptune is the ruler of Pisces, so it's Piscean energy times 1,000. But it's also not being too practical and too logical. There's a middle ground that you have to find with Virgo and Pisces, and that is spiritual and practical, earthly and otherworldly. You can't go too far into the spiritual and not have any grounding. You have to find a opposition point or a middle ground. Either way, this full moon lunar eclipse in Taurus is a final graduation point, and I am super excited for all my fellow fixed signs, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. But of course, everybody has been experiencing these eclipses on the Taurus-Scorpio axis, so take a closer look and see where 5 degrees of Taurus is in your particular chart. What house is it in? Is it aspecting, or is it on any natal planets or aspecting any natal planets? And that will give you more context on how you can work with this eclipse in your personal chart. If you guys want to book personal readings with me, you can message me on any platform. My readings are on sale until the end of the month. I love you. Happy eclipse season.